Namaste everyone, this is Pooja. Today we are going to talk about NPTE. This is the licensing exam that you need to give if you want to practice physical therapy in United States. Now I am a foreign trained physiotherapist or physical therapist for United States, and I am going to talk in terms of what it meant for me as foreign trained. So we'll talk about NPTE, just what it is. We'll also talk about what does it mean for you if you are internationally educated, what all things you need to keep in mind. And the third thing is we'll talk about where you should start preparing for NPTE. So this is all the video is going to be about, so let's get started. Okay, so NPTE is a multiple choice question exam. Okay, you will have 250 questions. Every question would have 4 options. You have to select the best option, the one option that you find is the best one. Out of these 250 questions, 50 questions would not be counted. These questions are just there for validity, but you won't know what these questions are. So for you, it's basically a 250 question exam. It's a 5-hour long exam. You will have scheduled and unscheduled breaks, so that you have one fixed break and then you can take as many breaks as you want, but that would be deducted from the total time that you have. Now, the exam is usually taken in a prometric center. You can give the exams in either US or Canada. I'm not sure what other countries they allow, but for US and Canada, there are prometric centers that they allow to give the exams. These exams, let's say the 250 question exams are broken down into blocks of 50 questions, right? So there will be 5 blocks. After you submit the first 50 questions, you can't really revisit these questions back. So once you are done with the 50 questions, you submit them. Then you start from 50 to 100, 100 to 150, and so on and so forth. That's NPTE in brief. As foreign educated physiotherapists, what we need to do is, first of all, we need to go for a credential evaluation. So we need to get our credits evaluated. Let's say I have a bachelor's degree. I'll give my example. So I hold a bachelor's degree from India, and in 2016 I did credential evaluation so that with PHYSIO, so that I could sit for NPTE. So once my credential evaluation was completed, they said that okay, now you're eligible to sit for the exam and now you can book the dates. I got the ATT letter and then I could book the exam dates. So there are many institutes that do the credential evaluation. Back then I just thought PHYSIO is the only one, and that's what I used to suggest to people. But if you go on FSBPT's website, you'll see that there are other institutions as well that do this credential evaluation, so you could go with them as well. Although the most commonly preferred is PHYSIO, because most people know about it, that's what most people are going to suggest, but check out all your other options. So if you guys have more questions and if you guys want to talk to me, connect with us, join us on Instagram, the ID is PT Movement Masters. Join us on Facebook group, the name is Movement Masters. The link would be in the description as well. So let's connect. So other than the credential evaluation, many people are worried about giving TOEFL. Do they have to give TOEFL or not? So certain states have TOEFL as a requirement, certain states don't. So it's a good idea to check on FSBPT, check out what state you want to give your license exams in. So let's say if you want to give NPTE in New Jersey, you will need to sit for TOEFL and need a specific score, as opposed to if you sit for New York, you don't need to give TOEFL, right? So it's different according to each state that you're applying to. Okay, so talking about preparing for NPTE, let's say you are in your 3rd or final year of physiotherapy and now you are thinking that, you know what, after a year or so, I'll go to US, I'll, give NPTE. This is a good time to start doing your research, start preparing yourself. So the first thing you have to do is go on FSBPT's website, check out the website. It has almost all the information that you need. And if you are in doubt, it's a good idea to email them, because some of us are in unique situations. Some of us have certain credits. Some of us are confused. Do they need to do a bridge course or not? In most cases, you do not need a bridge course. So it's a good idea to email them. They'll respond to you, and that would that would give you some sort of satisfaction that okay, the organization itself has said this is okay and this is not. So you don't need to go on asking everyone. You can just email them directly. That being said, the good thing about NPTE is they have a specific book, okay? So Therapy Ed is the book that usually people talk about when they talk about NPTE, right? So in Therapy Ed, what the book is has a brief on all the topics that could be asked on NPTE. The book also has 3 exams that are quite similar. The questions are quite similar to what you can expect in NPTE. So Therapy Ed is a good book to start. Again, if you don't have Therapy Ed, because many people ask like, do you have the PDF version or how can I buy the Therapy Ed book? If you are in a position that you can access the book, that's good. If not, you can always prepare from Sullivan, Kishner, Maggie, the books that you're usually using in your day-to-day, not in your day-to-day, but the books that you use in your bachelor's degree. You can use the same books to prepare for the specific topics. Now you'll say, which specific topics? So if you go on FSVPT's website, they have NPTE outline, content outline that's given. The content outline describes in detail what each system, how much each system would have the weightage in the exams. So what are they going to, like, if you check the content outline, you'll easily figure out that they are focusing more on musculoskeletal, followed by neuro, cardio, pulmonary, and then comes other systems into geometry and stuff like that. Okay, so the 4 major topics are ortho, cardio, pulmonary, neurology. Focus on these 4, and they also have described each and every system in detail, like what they are looking for and what sort of questions they would be asking. So the content outline is a good place for you to start. So therapy aid, your content outline, and the books that you regularly use, Kishner, Sullivan, Maggie, they are a good place to start with. And if you are in the phase where you're going to give your NPT in the next couple of months, it's a good idea to invest in PEAT. PEAT is an exam tool that most students use before this. So this is sort of like getting yourself into a mock exam before you sit for the actual NPTE. So PEAT usually has 2 exams, the retired PEAT and PEAT and retired PEAT. Okay, so people usually give these exams right before they are going to sit for the exam, just so that they have an idea how well prepared they are. And because this is a 5-hour long exam, it's always a good idea to get the to sit yourself down for 5 hours and see how you do it. Because for me it was like I could go through the first 3 or 4 hours, but the last hour just for me to sit down and focus on the exam was very difficult. So it's always a good idea to practice more and more. If you go online, you'll find many sample questions which are similar to NPTE, so you can also practice those. The more you practice, the better you'll feel about yourself and your performance. So I have another video on how I prepared for NPTE and passed it in my first attempt. So if you want, please check that video out as well. Other than that, let's talk about strategies. What study strategies you should focus on. This is just my opinion and what I've read from books or what I have been advised by my seniors, my colleagues, my supervisors, people like that. So let's get started into the study strategies. So no matter what, if you're giving the exam for the first time, or if you were not lucky enough on the first or the second or the third or the fourth, the fifth trial, that's okay. Okay, these exams are sometimes, it's not necessary that just because you couldn't crack the exam doesn't mean that you're not smart enough. Might be you didn't get the tone of the exam, what the exam was trying to tell, or what the exact question was asking you. So it's not, it doesn't really equate, if you don't clear the exam, it doesn't really mean that you're not smart enough or you're not really a good physiotherapist. It's just that you have to, you still haven't understood the exam yet. So let's just start the preparation with a healthy attitude, with an I can do it attitude, that this is something that we are trying to do, and we'll motivate ourselves to the best of our capabilities, because there are enough negative things out there. So pump yourself up every single day that what, I can do this, I'll try my best, and things will work out. Again, many of you are confused, should I prepare by myself or should I start classes? That is totally dependent on you. I did prep courses and I thought it helped me stay on my path 50% of the time. 50% of the time I did things that I wanted to do, even if the class was doing it or not. So that's also okay. So choose your own path. That's the first thing. Always stay positive. That's the second part. The third thing is that you'll have to do regular practice. You can't really sit down for one day, sit for 8 hours one day and then 2 hours the next day and then not study the next day. So it's always better to have a plan of your own that you think will work out for you. So it's always a good idea to start writing notes like this is what I'm going to do, these are my content areas, this is how I'm going to start. I'm going to start with lower extremity or I'm going to start with upper extremity. I'll first finish this and then I'll give the exams. So if you have a plan made out, your mind would be much more calmer. That's what we do with our patients as well, right? You tell them that these are our short-term goals, these are our long-term goals. The same you have to do for these exams as well. Also, you teach your patients like what, these are the relaxation strategies. Like think of a garden where you are peaceful and relaxed, visual imaginary, imagine visual things, visual imagery or something like that, right? We tell them to do those. We teach them breathing exercises to sort of calm themselves. These are also good exercises for you as well. As a student, we do need a lot of these relaxation techniques so that when you are stressed out, you can calm yourself down. Regular exercises, developing a regular routine, I can't really emphasize enough because this is important. Also, this is a long exam, it's a 5-hour exam, so it's also tests your endurance. Like, your brain should not get fatigued at the end of the 4th hour, because you still have an hour to go, and that also would determine your score. So it's an endurance, it's a game of endurance. It's not like a power game, like you hit 5 times. No, you have to constantly keep on hitting for the 250 questions and you'll get there. So as I said earlier, there are tons and tons of material for NPTE preparation. I use Therapy Score Builder. I didn't use it so much, but many people really go through these books. So check out, there are tons of information. The thing is, you'll have to decide what books you want to focus on first. You might, if you have enough time, you might use the other books, but decide which books you think would be comfortable for you. Because for me, certain books that I read during my bachelor's, I wanted to go through the same thing because it felt familiar to me, and that's what I did. That being said, whenever you sit down to study, make sure that you get all your books together in one place, your notes are there, and you are in a quiet environment so that you can focus. At least try to sit for 2 to 3 hours every day. Usually people take anywhere between 1 to 3 months to prepare for the exam. Some would also, if you're working and if you have a family to take care of, some people start preparing as early as 6 months ahead of the exams, so just so that they can get a head start and they can slowly build themselves up. I took, I think, 3 to 4 months to prepare for the exam. I was studying and then I was also preparing for the exam, so I was not consistent. It was up and down, but yeah, for me it took anywhere between 12 to 14 weeks. And again, I'm not sure how many weeks I was focused on, but this is the time period. So as I told you, it's an endurance game. You have to do it slow and steadily. Now, as many of you know, NPTE is just a theory exam, right? It doesn't have a practical component to it. So what the exam has done is that they have integrated sort of the real life clinical scenarios, clinical interactions into the theory exams. So now you can't just really, when you're preparing for these exams, you can't just, it's not enough to just recall the information. You have to use clinical reasoning, logical reasoning, and say why you would do this mobilization at this point in time, or why you won't do this, how this is going to affect your patient's safety, or how this is going to affect your patient's treatment progression, things like that. So it's always a good idea whenever you're practicing questions that you have to figure out why this answer was right and why the other 3 were wrong. Your logical reasoning, your clinical reasoning is something that you should develop, because when you have the reasoning skills, no matter how hard the question is, you'll still be able to reason your way out. So that's always, that being said, I'm not saying you don't need facts and information and numbers, but again, you also need to integrate it into real life scenarios, practical scenarios as well. So a good strategy is to practice a lot of questions, and also just go through, whenever you practice, like this is what we used to do. We used to give sample exams, and then we'll review all the questions that we had. Even if we had it right, or even if we had it wrong, we would review all those questions. And trust me, giving the exam would just take like 4 or 5 hours, but reviewing these questions sometimes would take us 3 or 4 days on end, because every question you go and you review, and then you have to find similar literature in your books as well. So I know it's a long task, but it's an effective practice, because this way, once you have the clock ticking in your mind, things are, the wheels are already churning, you'll be able to answer the questions more effectively and readily. Okay, so there's this book, people usually call it the blue book. I'll just show it to you. This is the book. This is again from Therapy Aid. This is like a course manual. It's a thinner book as compared to the Therapy Aid. Now this book has something, they have divided the exam questions into certain levels. I'll just briefly go through it. I thought that is something that was helpful to me, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. So here we go. So the level 1 is recall of information. There is a lot of informative questions. I mean, there won't be any direct questions, so they won't be asking what happens in diabetes, or what is the exact amount at which you would not the platelet counts, what are the numbers of platelet counts where you would not ask your patient to exercise. See, such direct questions won't be there, but these memory-based questions are these memory-based information or facts are necessary for you to know so that you can build on those questions. So let's say they won't ask you a direct question saying what would happen in an ACL injury, okay, or what is a terrible triad. That is not the question, but they will say this patient had an ACL injury, what is going to be your treatment protocol, or what you would do or what you won't do. So first thing is recall of information. You are recalling the information that you need to have. That's level 1. You won't have direct questions, but you need this so that you have a good solid foundation. So the level 2 is comprehension. So whatever your basic information is, that if once you are done with the recall of information, once you have collected all the information that you need, let's say the Latchman's test and anterior and posterior drawer test and things like that, once you have that foundation built, the next step would be the comprehension part. Now you have to comprehend and see, there would be questions like what sort of gait you would see in someone who has an ankle sprain, or in someone who has an ACL injury, or in someone who has a quadriceps weakness, these type of things. So now it's not going to be straightforward as, oh, this person has quadriceps weakness, what would the gait pattern be? It would be something more complex than that. There are few questions that are not so complicated, but most of those questions would always build on them. So there will be certain layers to the questions. So one is your foundation, and then on top of that, now you're comprehending how are you going to use this information that a person with sprained ankle would have swelling and this and that. Now what would be the gait pattern? So the patient might have antalgic gait, right? So that is the comprehension part. So that's the second level. So these kind of questions are sometimes asked. That's why most people, what they do is they study in small groups. So if you go on Facebook, or even if you want to join us on Facebook, we have a Facebook page. We have more people giving PCE, but still you can connect with us there. You can also find other Facebook groups where you can find people who are giving the exams, who are at the same level of preparation that you are, and you can form small groups. If you're not working with prep classes, or if you're preparing by yourself, it is a good idea to prepare with someone so that you could have some sort of logical reasoning as to why I would do this and why you would do that and things like that. Coming on to level 3. So level 3 is basically application. So you are using your basic knowledge, you're using your comprehension skills, and now you're also applying this into a clinical scenario. So this is a question that is it's a good one, okay? So let's say you have a patient who is diabetic and they are in your therapy session, and now they are feeling dizzy, they are not feeling good. What are you going to do? Are you going to check insulin? Are you going to call 911? Are you going to give them some orange juice? Are you going to ask them to sit down? What are you going to do? So this is your basic knowledge plus your comprehension, and now it's integrated into a clinical scenario. So you're applying whatever you've learned, your techniques, your procedures, your patient safety guidelines and things like that in this sort of question to answer the question. Now comes level 4, when you are analyzing the given data, or you're interpreting the interrelations, what you should do next. You are using your clinical reasonings, your clinical expertise in this, and you are coming to a conclusion as to what to do. So sample question could be that you have a patient with traumatic brain injury, or you have a child with traumatic brain injury, and he has gone through the treatment and the assessment and everything, and now the patient is about to be discharged. What are few things that you will let their parents know, or what are you going to advise to the parents? And you have 4 different options. Why would you advise A over B, or what would you do first? So there are certain questions where every answer is right, but the thing is, what will you do first? So that is again where you have to analyze and see what has the highest priority and things like that. Okay, so when sitting for the exams, make sure that you are reading the question thoroughly. You are not missing what the question is actually asking you to, find the answers from the options. Let's say a question has an option saying, this is the situation, what are the things that you would not see in a patient with emphysema, right? Or what are the things that you would not see in a patient with osteoarthritis, things like that. So if you miss the keyword not here, you might just answer the whole question wrong, because you thought what are the things that would be seen in osteoarthritis, as opposed to the question asking what would you not see in osteoarthritis. So that's why it's important. Find out keywords like most, initial, expected, not, least. These could be the sample keywords that you can find out. So identify those questions, practice identifying those questions, practice skimming the questions as well. You have to skim and identify, okay, this is my keyword, this is the second keyword. That's something that would help. My strategy was I'll skim the question first, go through the answers, again skim the questions. When I'm going through the answers, I'll actually try to eliminate at least one or two, so by the time I come back to the options again, I have two of them already eliminated. So you can develop your own strategy. This was just mine. Other thing is, always make sure that you are understanding what exactly you want. Some people, because they have practiced certain kind of questions, they don't actually read the question that's given in the exam. They just only remember the things that they had practiced and they would go according to it. So it's very important to be present and alert throughout the exam. So when you're sitting for the exams, make sure you're 100% there, right? Stay alert, focus on your questions, read your questions thoroughly. Check for keywords like most often or initial, priority, never, least, always, only, things like these keywords would help you identify what sort of tune the question is going to ask you. Are they asking you to find out the positive things that would be seen in one condition, or are they asking what would not be seen in this condition, what would you do as opposed to what you would not do. Let's say I ask you, how can I go from New Jersey to New York, and you're telling me this is how you can go from New Jersey to Pennsylvania. It doesn't make sense, right? That's the same way it works here as well. Sometimes what happens is, because we have practiced a lot of questions, we only remember that this is the answer, this seems familiar, but you can't always go with what seems familiar. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. Look what the question is asking you for. Might be you have practiced a similar question, but might be this is not the exact question that you had practiced. So check for the words. Second thing is elimination. Elimination is a good strategy because it would save you time. So let's say a question is, a patient had right side hip arthroplasty, and what would you do? Why would you give the patient a cane? You would say, I'll give the patient a cane on the left side, right? But so what happens is here, so if the option, you'll give the patient the cane on the left side. Let's just keep it an easy question. The patient has a right side arthroplasty. Where would you give the patient? On what side would you give the patient the cane? And you say, I would do it on the left side. But now if there are 4 options, 2 of them have right side options and 2 of them have left side options, you can always take out those 2 right side options right away. So you are already eliminating 2 of your options right there and then. Now you just have to look for the other 2. What is the difference between these 2 options, and why would you select one over the other? So that is something that you will have to practice, and you will develop it really quickly. There will be certain questions where you would be asked to prioritize what would you do for this patient first. So make sure that the patient's safety and physiological needs, such as the need to breathe properly or to be comfortable in a situation, always supersedes everything else. So the patient's safety and physiological needs would prioritize. Later on, you will also have to focus on patient's preference. Let's say if the patient doesn't want to do this, that's it, you can't. You have to make sure that you are respecting their preferences and making sure they are safe. So that's it on the tips and tricks section. We are going to talk about what you have to do on the exam day. So these exams are usually taken in the Prometric Center. So I would suggest reach the Prometric Center at least 30 minutes ahead of time, if not earlier. Know how you're going to reach there, and sleep properly before the night of the exam. I made that mistake, okay? I could not sleep before the exam, and on the day of the exam I was exhausted. Every time I would submit those 50 questions, I would just put my head down for a few seconds, then get up again, because I was so sleepy. My eyes were hurting, my head was hurting, okay? So please don't make the mistake that I made. I was anxious, I was nervous, I literally had like palpitations at the end, because I was like, I don't really know I'm going to clear the exams or not. So that happens, but again, practice relaxation strategies and practice to keep yourself calm even when you feel like the situation is stressful. Because sometimes what happens is, there would be questions that you would have answered in the first 50 or first 100 questions, and something similar would come in the very end, and you would have to make 2 very opposing answers to 2 similar questions. Not exactly similar, but similar conditions. So either of that question is wrong. So that's when you realize, oh, if this is right, that one was wrong, and if that one is wrong, if that one is right, this one is wrong. So it could stress you out, but try to keep yourself calm. 1 or 2 questions here and there would not affect you, but don't let that one wrong question or one doubt ruin your whole exam, okay? During the exam, make sure you have enough glucose or caffeine or whatever you need to keep yourself up, alert. there for the whole exam. You can take short breaks according to your preference. I didn't do it because I wanted the exam to be done quickly. Many people suggested me not to rush through the questions because I read really fast. So my strategy is, I'll first go through the first 50 questions. I'll quickly just like under 30 seconds I'll answer that question and move to the next question. Once I think like I have enough time, I'll go through those questions again. So that was too much. I used to do things quickly. Sometimes they flag you because they think like, you know, they are answering the questions really quickly. They are doubtful why this is happening. So it's always good to not rush through the questions. But again, time management is a skill that you'll definitely require for these exams. So yeah, that's my take on NPTE. I would really appreciate if those who have already given the NPTE could share their ideas and their strategies in the comment section. This would help others, and it would also help me when I'll be suggesting this to other people. So put your comments in the comment section below, and yeah, connect with us on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. Please stay connected, and all the very best. See you guys next video.